And we are recording.
Okay.
Would you like to introduce the meeting, Chair LaHood?
I would be happy to. Give me 1 second. Welcome, everyone. It is 4:32 p.m. This is a meeting of the Compliance and Amendments Committee of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force on Tuesday, August 24th. This is our remote regular meeting. The listen and call-in phone number is 1415-906-4659. The meeting ID is 611-858-546#. If you wish to make a statement during general public comment or wish to comment when invited on other matters, please press *6 to unmute your telephone to speak. Please press *6 again to mute your telephone once you're done with your statement. Remote access information and participation in accordance with Governor Gavin Newsom's Executive Order number N3320, declaring a state of emergency regarding the COVID-19 outbreak, and Mayor London N. Breed's proclamation declaring a local emergency issued on February 25th, 2020, including the guidance for gatherings issued by the San Francisco Department of Public Health Officer. Aggressive directives were issued to reduce the spread of COVID-19. On March 17, 2020, the Board of Supervisors authorized their board and committee meetings to convene remotely via Microsoft Teams and will allow remote public comment via video conference. Members of the public may participate by phone or may submit their comments by email to cheryl.leger@sfgov.org. All comments received will be made part of the official record. Sunshine Ordinance Task Force agendas and their associated documents are available at sfbos.org/sunshine. Again, the public call-in number is 1415-906-4659, meeting ID 611-858-546#. As the COVID-19 disease progresses, please visit the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force website regularly to be updated on the current situation as it affects the legislative process. Finally, meeting decorum. Any member of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force may call for decorum due to disorderly conduct of meeting participants. Persons who engage in threatening and or menacing behavior may be asked to leave. Ms. Leger, if you could please call the first item.
Item number 1, call to order, roll call, and agenda changes. Roll call. Member Neighbors.
Present.
Member Neighbors present. Member Wong.
Present.
Member Wong present. Chair LaHood.
Present.
We have a quorum. Are there any agenda changes I have not received, or any requests or emails? Have the committee members received any emails requesting changes to the agenda?
I have not, although I have a question. An earlier version I saw, I thought had more items. Did we have some petitioners withdraw their complaints?
Yes, we did. We
did.
Okay,
thank you. I was wondering because it seems very short today.
Yeah, we talked about that though. The last time we were talking about this agenda, we talked about it.
Yes, and it was at the you know what, you're right, because I had seen one version and then right before we were going to approve it, that's right, you told me, and it was too late to add anything new. Which, as everyone knows, because of our time limit and because of requirements for public noticing when changes happen at the last minute, unfortunately we can't swap other items in. So I don't think there are any other additional changes.
Okay. Or no changes since the publication of the agenda.
Correct.
All right, good. All right, shall I read item 2?
Yes, please.
Item 2, approval of the July 27, 2021 Compliance and Amendments Committee meeting minutes. Does anybody have any changes? I have a copy of the minutes.
So there was one thing that I noticed as I was reviewing them again today, and that is that we had deferred approval of the June minutes until the audio was not yet available online. And we had accepted comments from people, but we wanted to wait on approving the minutes. And I realized as I was reading them that we probably should have included them again in this packet, or excuse me, on this agenda in order to approve them. In committee members, what do you think of instead of waiting another whole month, and Ms. Leger, perhaps you would have advice on this as well. I was wondering, since we had already taken comments on them, but we didn't want to approve until the audio was available, would it be appropriate for us to ask Chair Wolf if we could add that as an item to the full task force agenda for the next meeting, just so that we could get them approved? Since we've already had a discussion, but we were just waiting for the audio. Members, what do you think of that?
That sounds good to me.
Yeah, me also.
And Ms. Leger, is that something that you think would be possible? Just so that people don't have to wait a full month, and since I don't think it would be time consuming, but just to give people an opportunity to have access to both.
Yeah, I don't think Chair Wolf would have an objection to that.
Okay.
But I have to speak with him tomorrow anyway, so I can bring up this issue.
Okay, I would appreciate that. Members, did you have any other changes or comments regarding the July minutes?
I will tell you that the audio was posted like the next day when I brought
I know, I saw it. It was
yeah. Why didn't they do that? And
I don't know. It must have been a glitch.
No, they've been really overloaded with the
Okay.
meetings we have to support and participate in and public comment. They have a lot on their plate. So I spoke to one of the IT members specifically to address this issue, and he took care of it.
Okay.
That's why it was posted so quickly.
Thank you. Members, any other comments on the July minutes?
No.
Okay. Let's open this up for public comment. If anyone would like to make public comment, please state your name and we'll create a queue. Who would like to make public comment on the July minutes?
Warfield.
Okay, Mr. Warfield, you're first in line. Who else would like to make public comment on the July minutes?
Anonymous number 3.
Anonymous number 3, you are second in line. Who else would like to make public comment on the July minutes? Okay, I think we just have 2 people. I'll ask again after anonymous number 3. Ms. Leger, when you're ready for Mr. Warfield to start, please give him the signal.
Mr. Warfield, are you ready?
I am. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Then
You
I'm
may
ready.
begin.
Let me know when to start.
You may begin.
This is Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. I certainly hope that what just passed in the discussion will go clearly into the agenda as an explanation and in the minutes of the current meeting as a decision that was made, which is a little bit out of the usual and might surprise people who expected with monthly meetings you would be approving your own minutes. And I'd also just want to comment that not being able to substitute things on an agenda, that is a function largely of last-minute changes that could only be last-minute instead of in time for changes to be made and substitutions to be made based on the current schedule of alerting people about meetings and about publishing when you publish your agendas. When you know for many months that you're going to have hearings, it seems to me that it would be worthwhile to prepare the agendas well in advance so that people that can't manage it, when they notify you reasonably promptly, can have their time substituted, their hearing substituted with another. With respect to these particular minutes, I think once again that the task force is doing a disservice to the public when it doesn't include the relevant details about people's comments. In the case of my comments, you've got basics correct this time with regard to addresses. I would suggest a comma between Executive Director and Library Users Association. It's not one thing. It's a title and a group name. And I would appreciate if you have those things as I repeat them in each time that I repeat them. I really would like an explanation of how it is that that does not happen and consistently doesn't happen over and over again. And if I've heard correctly about a policy, then I'm very interested, where was the meeting or where is the documentation for that policy? Where it says that, generalities, for example, Peter Warfield, number 3, suggested the motion should contain additional details. What additional details? Item number, there's another place at which it says that I mentioned the addressing of the requirement to maintain records in a professional manner. That was key to the comment that would change the motion, and I think that needs to be explained a little further. I think my time is up, so thank you very much. But more details would be very helpful.
Anonymous number 3.
I'm sorry?
Are you ready
You're
now?
breaking up.
Number 3?
I am, yes.
All right. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. This is anonymous number 3. I'm going to point out a series of suggested corrections. One is under item number 3. It says anonymous number 3 said such and such. It says that I stated that Sean Ellsburn took screenshots and accidentally sent them to him. That's not what I said. I said that Sean Ellsburn took screenshots and accidentally sent to me an email bragging about deleting those screenshots. And then it says that Dennis Herrera, the word Dennis needs to be spell corrected there, accidentally sent a confidential draft. No, the word accidentally should not be in that second sentence. Then there are 2 motions under item 4. The first motion is wrong. It's just a copy of the second motion. What had actually happened is you all made a different motion, not realizing the order of determination was invalid. Then we had this discussion during public comment, and then you made the corrected amended motion. I'm not sure what your first motion was. Hopefully someone is more certain about that and puts the right motion in the first motion that was then amended. It says that in my comment under item 4 that I asked you to find no violation. I definitely did not ask you to find no violation. Probably if you remove the words to find no violation, the rest of my comment is correct there. And there was one more issue. Item 7. It discusses Chair LaHood's response to member neighbors' concerns, but member neighbors' concerns, which was the main talking point there, aren't actually listed at all, because member neighbors at that point clarified she wasn't discussing the agenda packet thing that member Stein was discussing. She had her own concerns that she was raising, but none of that is described in item 7. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for your comments. My thinking is that any requests that were made about by the 2 individuals who commented about their own comments, if we could make those corrections to the minutes. Although Mr. Warfield, I know we've had this discussion before regarding how many times we include your contact information, and this is not for discussion again, but just to clarify, we agree to put it one time in each set of minutes, but not every time that you speak. And you asked how this policy came about. This is the policy that I have set for this committee that is my purview to decide. Also, the Ms. Leger has instructions from, you know what, I'm not going to get into it. I'm just going to answer that one question because it has come up before, and I want to be clear that we do want to get your contact information in the minutes correctly once, but we can't repeat it. We have decided not to repeat it every time you speak, but it will be with the very first mention so that people who are looking at the minutes will know that your contact information is there and can get in touch with you. The other thing that I was going to say regarding the 2 motions where we had an amendment, my recollection is that they were very similar. And the chief distinction was that we made the initial one based on the assumption that an order of determination had already been issued. It turns out that that was issued in error, and then we sent it, which is why the wording on the second one is very similar, and we were sending it back to the task force, but for essentially, now I have to look back at what the second one says. There's a reason that they were very similar. It's because they were very similar, but our understanding of the situation had changed. Regardless, our comments about what had been done regarding Signal was consistent. What changed is what we knew, how the full task force would be approaching the matter, given that an order of determination had not yet been made. I'd like to hand things back. I saw, I think both members wanted to say something. Member Wong, I saw your hand go up first. Did you have a comment or clarification?
No, I just wanted to mention, like, I think I missed that we were looking at the July minutes, and so the few public comments I heard, and like in terms of amendments, were things I generally agreed with. In terms of having a bit more detail on some of the minutes, I think would be very helpful. I did notice the screenshots error as well, because there was no clarity on what that meant, or screenshots being accidentally sent. I feel like a note about that and a correction for the implication of that would be helpful. And then I did also notice that the motions are very similar, but I don't think they specifically say that we're referring the matter. The second one doesn't specifically say we're referring the matter back to the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force or the full task force in order for there to be an order of determination made. So I think adding that in would be great as well.
Well, actually, it was our job to make sure the Signal search was done. It was not our job to say that an order of determination should be issued. We had been asked by the full task force to specifically make sure that the Signal search was done, which we did. Like I believe, and without going back, we're speaking now, and I without going back and listening to the audio again, because what we were doing was fulfilling a request from the task force, which was make sure this search has been done, and then tell us that it has been done. We were not being asked to make a recommendation regarding an order of determination at that point.
Gotcha.
I mean, does that make sense? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Member Neighbors, but actually, Member Wong, I wanted to say, so you agreed with the way Anonymous adjusted the wording regarding the screenshots.
Yes, because currently I think it just says right now that the screenshots were accidentally sent to him, and that's it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, Ms. Leger, I think with the adjustments on that, would you be able to go back and listen to the recordings and follow those edits as they were suggested?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay. Member Neighbors.
Yeah, I would agree with the slight changes in the motions in that last sentence, because I think all we were tweaking was, even though it doesn't seem to be reflected in the wording, that one word additional consideration, or that phrasing, is where we made the change, where we realized that there had not been an order determination. So I believe that the motion that is corrected stands as we said it. And I also will say that I agree with Anonymous number 3 in terms of the issue for number 7. I had raised the issue of his prior email regarding potential changes to the respondents form, and I believe at that point, Chair LaHood, you and our administrator had a discussion, carried on the discussion from Member Stein, and I gave you a timeout at some point and brought it back around. It would be nice to have that piece in the minutes. I have tried to follow up on that, and I'm still trying to work on getting that moving, so it would be nice to have it documented here as well.
Okay, I would agree with that too, just for clarity. And it sounds like that would just be an addition of a sentence that
Yeah.
referencing exactly what we were talking about.
Yeah.
So I think this all sounds good. Ms. Leger, do you have a clear sense of which modifications and suggested edits that we should be accepting?
I just want to be clear about the two motions.
Mm-hmm.
They were separate. I mean, they're definitely separate motions, but are you happy with the way they're stated, or do you want me to do it verbatim what Anonymous 3 said? Because
Oh, no. I do not want to change the wording of the motions. I believe, and members, let's confirm, I believe that they are correct. And the reason that they are so close is because they were close, but our understanding of the case changed, which is why what we did in the second one was to say, okay, let's do exactly what the task force asked us to do, which was to make sure that there was compliance on the signal search, and so the motion contains, our response on that, and then refers it back.
okay, that's fine. Yeah. I've got it marked. I've got it marked on the tape where I should listen to Anonymous 3's comments, and so I can certainly follow that and make the changes. And then, do you want me, after I make the changes, to have this on the agenda for September?
Yes, please. Yeah,
Okay.
because it sounds like there are enough different changes that I think it'd be helpful to do that. And as far as my suggestion for the June minutes going to the full task force, because we had already had that discussion, and of course we want to open it up for public comment again, but I suspect that people, since instead of having those minutes not yet approved minutes not available for yet another month, and so that we don't get a backlog, members, as long as you still agree, I would like to ask Chair Wolf, and if for some reason he says we can't do it at the next task force meeting, then we will take care of this at our next committee meeting.
I'm just typing this all in. Okay, so that was our public comment.
Yes.
Okay.
Do we have a motion to approve the minutes? July minutes. Oh, no, we're not approving the minutes. This is to the call of the chair. Forgive me. We took public comment. We want to review them at our next meeting. So continuing to the call of the chair.
And you're making the motion, Chair Hood?
Yes.
Do we have a second?
This is Member Neighbors. I'll second.
Okay. And we want to do public comment again on the motion?
Sure, let's do it. Would anyone like to make public comment on the motion?
Could we have the motion read again, please? I'm not sure what we're voting on here, what you're voting on here.
This is we are postponing approval of the minutes to the call of the chair.
And not putting it to this full Sunshine Task Force?
No, that was June. Those are the June minutes. We're talking about the July minutes.
If nobody else is saying anything, I would like to say something.
Okay. Is this Mr. Warfield again?
Yes, it is.
Okay, one moment. Ms. Leger will give you the timer when she's ready.
Do we have other public commenters?
I'm not hearing any, but we'll ask again after Mr. Warfield is finished.
Okay, Mr. Warfield, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Let me know when I can start.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. This is Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and reachable by mail at P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. I think it's very important that the Sunshine Task Force and all of its component committees and so on really work on making accurate minutes and, for that matter, accurate agendas, because that's a major part of the product of your work. So I certainly support putting off approval until all the stars line up, so to speak. But I do think that you should not be afraid of, I heard a comment somewhere in this discussion about not wanting to have a backlog. Well, that's certainly a worthwhile purpose, but it should not be your primary purpose or an overwhelming thing that is number one on your list. What should be number one on your list is having good and useful and accurate minutes. And I think that's extremely important. I can tell you from quite some years back, there was a time, excuse me, under a different administration, under a different body of members, that there were literally, I would say, certainly half a dozen to a dozen or even more minutes, that were being held over from one meeting to the next because they couldn't seem to get it right, and the body wanted to get the minutes correct. And so what they did is they did not accept problematic minutes, but simply worked at them, presumably until the minutes were correct. And I think that's appropriate. To have minutes that don't show the exact wordings of motions, that don't show the relevant parts of the discussion that you had, as well as members of the public provided, is, well, it's wrong, it's inaccurate, but it also greatly undercuts your ability to bring justice and to be clear about what's correct and what's just to the public and to the public. I don't know what that was. I showed 10 seconds more on my time. So that's what I have to say on that subject. Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else wishing to make public comment on this motion?
Yeah, my name's Winship Hillier. I'll make a comment.
Okay, Mr. Hillier, Ms. Leger will give you the signal on the timer.
Mr. Hillier, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, you have to speak up because it's hard to hear you.
Okay, can you hear me?
That's better, yes. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, I don't need a warning because I've got my own timer. Just wanted to draw your attention to the rules of order regarding this. I'm not familiar with your task force's specific rules, but I do know that you cite Robert's Rules of Order as a background, and so I just wanted to draw your attention there to paragraph 14:6 regarding postponement of the minutes in cases where no more than a quarterly time interval will elapse between sessions. The question can be postponed until but not beyond the next regular business session. For example, in a body that holds regular business meetings on the same day of each week, a question cannot, if one meeting, be postponed for longer than a week. And regarding including public comment in motions, I can find nothing in Robert's rules that supports reporting public comment at all. It says actually that the minutes are to be a record of what was done at the meeting, not what was said by members. And that's just talking about members. And that's paragraph 48:2. There is an exception for if the proceedings are published. So I don't know if this committee or this task force meets that requirement, but that's detailed in 48:16, in which case the minutes are supposed to reflect what members said on either side of a question. So when there's debate on a motion, that should be included. And that's all I have to say. Back to you, Madam Chair.
This is anonymous number 3. I have a comment now, I guess.
Okay, one moment, please. Ms. Leger will let you know when she's ready with the timer.
Anonymous, are you ready?
I am.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. This is just, first of all, I absolutely agree with Mr. Warfield's comment, discussion regarding accurate minutes. I don't, though, agree that means things should be put off until we get it right. It just means get it right in one meeting, or maybe two if that's what it takes. But I really wanted to comment about the last comment about Robert's Rules of Order. I don't see why internal rules should ever override what is required by the Sunshine Ordinance and/or Brown Act. And so the rules in the law about the fact that public comment needs to be summarized accurately is what matters. And that's all I was going to say on that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Are there any other members of the public wishing to make comment on this motion? Okay, seeing none, I think we're ready to call for ready to call the vote.
Do I get to say something?
Oh, I'm sorry, I did not hear. Is there an additional public comment? We didn't hear you speaking before. Who's there, please?
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you. Yes, hello, we can hear you now.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, would you like to make public comment?
No, I am the respondent.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. There is no response on this. This is,
Oh, God. Okay.
Your
All right.
matter has not been called yet.
This is public comment for the motion to continue the matter to the call of the chair. People are allowed to make public comment on the motion only.
This is on approving the July minutes.
Did you wish to make public comment on the July minutes, the motion that was just read?
No.
Okay, thank you. We'll be calling the other items very soon. Is there any additional public comment on the motion regarding the July minutes? Seeing none, thank you. Ms. Leger, if you could please call the vote.
Chair LaHood?
Aye.
Chair LaHood, aye. Member Neighbors?
Aye.
Member Neighbors, aye. Member Wong?
Aye.
Member Wong, aye. The motion to move the matter to the call of the chair, postponing approval of the July minutes. I didn't say moved by Chair LaHood, second by Member Neighbors, to move to the call of the chair and postpone the approval of the July minutes to the next meeting.
You don't need to say to the next meeting because
The call of the chair.
Yeah.
Okay. Next item.
Yes, please.
Item number 3, public comment. Members of the public may address the committee on matters that are within the committee's jurisdiction, but not on today's agenda.
Okay, we're going to do the same thing we've done in the past. We'll create a queue. Who would like to make public comment?
Warfield, please.
Mr. Warfield, you're first in line. Who else would like to make public comment on anything not on today's agenda?
Sure, anonymous number 3.
Anonymous number 3, you're second in line. Would anyone else like to make public comment on matters not on today's agenda?
Yes, I'd like to make public comment.
And your name?
Okay.
Jeffrey Greer.
Okay, Mr. Greer, you're third in line. Is there anyone else who would like to make public comment on items not on or matters not on today's agenda? Okay, we'll ask again at the end in case anyone has had trouble with unmuting themselves. Again, it's *6 both to mute and unmute. Ms. Leger, when you're ready, if you could take the first speaker, that would be great.
Mr. Warfield, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Just let me know when to start.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. This is Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. You can be reached at libraryusers2004@yahoo.com and also by mail at P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. On June 2nd, the full task force voted 9-1 in favor of our complaint against the Library Commission regarding problems, rather serious problems, with their provision of a reasonable opportunity for public comment. We filed this complaint the day after the meeting at which this problem was obvious. It was so bad that we were prevented from making public comment on the key item of a special meeting in July of 2020. I thought this was a significant matter because there were lots of other groups who were using remote meetings as a way to conduct their public business. The win was significant because it basically said that a body has to provide a reasonable opportunity, and the Library Commission did not provide a reasonable opportunity for public comment. Also, that the library put people in the position of having to pay, in many cases, heavy toll charges just to connect by telephone. So I received the order of determination, the written order of determination that was sent August 12th, more than 2 months later. And I think that if you want to have a compliance committee, then you need to have a couple of things. One is a order of determination and a hearing that determines exactly what did the body in question do wrong and what do they need to do to fix that problem. Otherwise, you have basically what I've got, which is they did something wrong. It's not really clear what was wrong, and there's no follow-up prescribed. There's no follow-up committee that has been prescribed, and I can tell you that before and after the meeting, nothing has changed at the Library Commission. Now, there is a paragraph in this letter that I got that says the committee suggested the respondent provide information on the calling process. I haven't heard anything about that. It's not an order it's not an order. It's nothing that's being sent to a subcommittee, and I think that's very problematic. So the orders of determination, I think, need to provide all the details you can that are relevant. You need to determine those in the hearings and forward for follow-up to committees as usual when there's something that is a problem, but there's no resolution clearly in place. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Ms. Leger, when you're ready with the timer, we'll take the next speaker.
Anonymous 3, are you ready?
Excuse me, I am.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. This is anonymous number 3. I'm going to talk about 3 things, and I will give you a written summary to Ms. Leger. So the first is the complaint committee did go quite into some detail about possible improvements to the agenda packet. They're very welcome. It looks like they're going to move full steam ahead on recommending that to the full task force. There were a number of suggestions made by me and various other members of the public, including related potentially to how the city must respond to complaints. There's a great checklist proposed by Mr. Manette Shaw. I hope everyone takes a look at that. I think it would be quite useful. Second is about the written responses. We heard about this last minute withdrawals, and it happened at the last committee too. Oh, they got what the complainant gets what they want, and then there's no need for a hearing. But it shouldn't need to wait months and months. These complaints were served by SOTF a long time ago. And I think, as I wrote to you, you should amend the rules that if the city does not provide the accurate, correct defense in writing in 5 days, as your rules say, you should simply not accept those defenses. And that'll provide some incentive for the city to actually act timely. And I got a response from DPW that they were like, oh, they always follow the rule. And it's true. Public Works does almost always follow that rule. But a lot of other city agencies absolutely don't follow the 5-day rule. And finally, about the purpose of SOTF, this was raised in the last complaint committee about people trying to, not about me, but somebody else, trying to look into why is someone bringing a complaint. That is completely irrelevant. The question that SOTF has to decide, according to the law and your complaint procedure, is whether or not the city, a department, or an official violated the Sunshine Ordinance, Public Records Act, or Brown Act. Not whether they're currently violating it, not whether they did it intentionally, just did they violate it or not. And no matter what some member of the public, why they're doing it, what they say, whether they're rude or not, that has nothing to do with whether or not the city has complied with the law that binds it. And that's what matters, and it's always what should be looked at. And when respondents start bringing up unrelated things, that's their right to bring it up, but you should ignore it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Greer. Ms. Leger will let you know when she's ready with the timer.
Mr. Greer, are you ready?
Absolutely.
Go ahead, sir.
Well, in light of previous comment, I would just like to say that I believe it is time for SOTF to seriously take a look at when they are being utilized as and weaponized for personal gain and for personal purpose. That is not to neglect the cut and dry, whether a violation occurred or not, but the willful and purposeful handicapping of a well-oiled, efficient commission for ulterior purposes should be included and looked at, not in the decision-making process, but I think SOTF needs to look at their participation in that. That's all I have to say, and that is it.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any other members of the public wishing to make public comment on matters not on today's agenda? Hearing none, public comment is closed. Ms. Leger, if you could please call the next item.
Just a moment, I'll be right with you. Item number 4, file number 21036, complaint filed by Winship Hillier against the Behavioral Health Commission for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 67.7A by failing to post the agenda 72 hours in advance of the meeting and failure to provide a description of each item of business. 67.7B, failing to post documents on the website or make available to the public. 67.9A, failure to post relevant documents on the internet. 6715C, failing to allow public comment. And 6721E. No, we end there.
Okay, it looks like the
Cut off.
something got cut off there. Was that the description of 6721E?
Yes, that was.
Okay, so it's still for violation of 6721E. If we could, if this shows up in future places, let's make sure that the description of what that is corrected. Do we have the petitioner and respondent? Are you both here?
Yes.
Are you the petitioner or the respondent? Okay, I heard a yes. Who said yes?
The respondent.
Okay, thank you. And the petitioner is also here?
Petitioner Winship Hillier here.
Okay, Mr. Hillier, we're going to, so just to verify that what we're doing today is determining jurisdiction and making sure that we have the information. If we find jurisdiction, if we'll listen to the basic aspects of the case to make sure that it's ready to be forwarded to the full task force, but this is not a full hearing. So Mr. Hillier, we'll give you 5 minutes to describe your complaint, and if you could just wait for Ms. Leger to give you the timer, and then we will give the respondent a chance to respond.
Mr. Hillier, are you ready?
I'm ready.
You're gonna have to speak up.
Okay, I've got the phone right in front of my mouth. Can you hear me?
That's much better. Thank you very much. You may begin.
Okay, thank you. I don't need a warning because I've got my timer running. Just a few corrections on page P14, the first paragraph, claim number 3. It says the implementation committee is subject to the ordinance under section 3, subdivision D5. I'm sorry, D4. It should be D5 because it's a standing committee. It was created by the chair, so it would not fall under D4. On page P23, second paragraph, claim number 23, there's a parenthetical hypothetical there about 7A would have been violated if the nomination committee had not met. I'm sorry, had met, but had quorum because it had met without quorum and without notice. That's actually debatable because the nominating committee was an ad hoc committee created by the chair. Arguably, it wasn't covered by the ordinance then, but there's also an argument that it was because it had been appointed or created by the chair in I think, December of 2019. So it was meeting over a very long period. It might be considered a standing committee because of the long period over which it met, and that's in the case law. So just a warning about that. On page P26, page 15, 17th line of the last paragraph, it refers to paragraph 5027 of Rules of Order, newly revised. There's a typographical error. It should be 50:27. There is a letter to the committee submitted pursuant to SOTF Bylaws Article 6, Section 1, Subdivision D, and which gives this committee subject matter jurisdiction over recommendations for amendments to the ordinance. And that's on page P68 through P70. I'd like to withdraw that letter. It's based on a conflict between the ordinance and the Brown Act, and I've since my understanding has increased of the ordinance since then, and it now appears that conflict happens all the time. In fact, the commission evokes it probably once per month, and so I don't think that it would actually be helpful to remove the conflict. It might even be harmful because it would sort of clutter up the ordinance. So with your permission, I'd like to respectfully ask to withdraw that letter. And there's an email postscript on page P76. Which should go with that. I'd like to respectfully ask the committee to make a reference to staff for factual information regarding whether the PDF file that I submit containing the complaint itself is available to task force members and committee members. And the reason is that I put some expense and some effort into putting features into that file that are not available on the version of it that's posted on the web. It appears that what the administrator does is she prints out the complaint and all the correspondence and then scans them, and a lot of stuff gets lost that way. Specifically on page P42, the second and third lines from the top were highlighted in the original to draw your attention to, and then if that highlighting has been stripped out. And if that's going to be the norm and you can't look at the original, then I need to find another way to draw your attention to those items. in future complaints by referencing them in the text or using a pen and ink and scanning it that way. Also on page P57, the second through fourth sentences of the second paragraph are all highlighted. In the original complaint that I submitted, all that was stripped out on the version that's on the web. And finally, bookmarks. I put in bookmarks to bookmark each of the attachments so you can quickly and easily navigate to them. And those have been lost, I think. And finally, it's the version I submitted was text searchable, and the one that's online is not text searchable. So I would like a reference. If you could, please, I respectfully ask that you make a reference to staff for factual information concerning whether the original complaint is available to you. And regarding some elusive comments that were made earlier during general public comment, I don't know that I have any objective other than the commission complying fully with the Brown Act and the Sunshine Ordinance. And with that, I'll hand it back to you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. We're going to hear from the petitioner, and then we're going to come back with some questions. And just to let you know, I'm going to ask you to summarize for the record a few more details about your complaint. But in the meantime, we'd like to hear from the representative for the respondent. Could you please identify yourself?
Yes, my name is Jeffrey Greer. I'm Executive Director for San Francisco Behavioral Health Commission.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Leger is going to let you know when she's ready with the timer, and you'll have 5 minutes to speak.
Mr. Greer, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
You may begin.
Okay. I'm not 100% familiar with the rules and regulations, but it seems as though there was a lot of shifting and changing of the complaint at the last minute, and I would like an opportunity to review a final draft of what the actual complaint is at some point. And all I can say to all of these complaints is that there was no staff for the Behavioral Health Commission during this period of time. I don't feel as though I've had adequate time to review all 40 plus claims here. And I would like to have an opportunity to really look at it. So that's all I have to say. I don't have anything else to say.
Okay, committee members, I'd like to offer you the chance to ask questions of our petitioner and respondent that will help us to determine jurisdiction and whether we have the facts and materials that we would need if we were to advance this to the full task force. What questions do you have? Okay, I don't see anyone jumping up yet, so I'm guessing that you're still thinking. Mr. Hillier, I'd like to ask you to, you gave us a lot of details about what you wanted to change, about what was in the record, but since we have others on this call who may not understand that, could you give us a brief summary of what you, of your complaint? What I've looked at the documents, they're very detailed. If you could give us a brief summary of what your complaint is against this committee, that would be helpful for us.
Okay, how much time do I have?
I said brief, so I don't want you to go through all of the enumerated items, but could you give us, is there an overview that you could give us or some recurring themes that you've encountered that informed your complaint?
Okay, it's a bit difficult to summarize because there are 42 different claims, but what I can say about it is that it covers a 3-month period of basically the last quarter of 2020. And this period was also covered by complaint number 21021, which went from mid-September of 2020 through February of 2021. And but complaint number 21021 only covered violations of the Brown Act. This one goes over again the last quarter of 2020 with violations of the Sunshine Ordinance that aren't duplicative of the Brown Act. And there are some random things. There was an agenda posted that wasn't text searchable. There was a request, a request for public records that didn't get a determination. But most of them have to do with either 7A, violations of Section 7A or 15C. The commission hasn't approved a rule for public comment, which I think is required by 15C. And with regard to 7A, there were repeated violations in this area because the commission depends upon an exemption from the notice requirement of the Brown Act for a member of the policy body or their staff making a brief announcement or making a brief report on his or her own activities. And those exemptions don't exist in the Sunshine Ordinance. So when the commission uses those exemptions to put inadequate notice on the agenda of what they're talking about, they're actually violating the Sunshine Ordinance. And that happened over and over again. There were also occasions of a document being described that wasn't referenced on the agenda and wasn't posted on the internet in advance of the meeting. And there may be one or two things that I'm missing because it is a long complaint. I did reread it this morning in preparation for this meeting. And but that's, let's see, I'm scrolling through it quickly right now. And I think that's, okay, I'm going through 15C again, 9A, 7B. I think that's everything. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. That actually was very helpful, and I think you encapsulated a lot of what's going on in this document. Member Neighbors, I see your hand raised. Do you have a question?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Hilliard, for that explanation. That was super helpful. And I do appreciate all the detail and time that you put into documenting your complaint. And it was a lot. I'm wanting to make sure I understand the gist of it as well, because I know that there were a lot of references to Robert's Rules of Order, which is a separate issue, right? And my understanding is that that's commissions pick and choose what aspects of parliamentary procedures they go by. So we would not be adjudicating on any kinds of Robert's Rules of Order complaints. So when I pull those out, am I reading correctly when I get down to this kind of distilled piece of your major concern is about the level of information on the agenda that would allow for interested parties to know whether or not they wanted to attend the agenda meeting because there were items of interest on that agenda for them to pay attention to? Would that be fair to say that's the kind of the gist of the complaints? Maybe some outliers, but many of them would be under that umbrella.
Yeah, I would say all of the complaints involving 7A have that purpose in mind. Yes.
Okay.
Back to you.
I have a question for the respondent, Mr. Greer.
Yes.
Yes. So you can you tell me when? I don't want to get into the details, but you mentioned you said that you didn't have enough staff. Were you aware of these issues as they were coming up, or receiving requests for information about these matters that Mr. Hilliard has enumerated?
Well, no, not really. This period that originally started, and I may not have the dates exact, and I will defer to Mr. Hilliard for his exacting of the dates, but I believe it started in 3 or 4 separate complaints. Once it started in June or May of 2020, went forward. There's another complaint that picked up in August, I believe, and went through October, and I think this is the 3rd complaint that he has filed. It's gone through February 9th or something like that. I was not even hired or employed until February 8th of 2021. Prior to that, there was no staff, no support whatsoever for the Behavioral Health Commission. It's all volunteer, and so whatever filings, whatever was done by the Behavioral Health Commission members. So I had no idea until I would probably say maybe 3 weeks ago, maybe a month, that these cases were coming too. I was given a 4-day notice on the first one, which is about 104, I think it was about a 99-page, 99 complaint issue. 2 weeks after that, on the 17th of August, or maybe it was, about 2 weeks, I got another complaint. That was 130 that was reduced down to 108. I did try to respond to that and was basically slapped on that one. And then we've got this complaint here, 44 pages. So I'm just getting acclimated to all of what this is and what this is about. I've got a pretty good idea. I have confidence that I can get a grasp. I can research and find out what really exists and what doesn't. But no, not until I was. And let me also post that there was a lot of time spent by the court trying to find out who the contact was of the Behavioral Health Commission. It took them a couple of months just to find out who I was. So no, I was not informed in a timely manner, I would feel.
Okay, well, I understand the challenge of having, we appreciate you being here and representing the commission and responding to our questions and requests. So thank you for doing that. And I do understand the challenge of having inherited some of this. One thing that, in terms of determining jurisdiction, I just want to make sure that we are in the right area. Mr. Greer, how was the commission formed?
How is it formed?
Yes. How does it exist? Under what authority?
Well, without going back and giving a whole history on it, basically it is an advisory group composed of various members of the community, consumers, professionals, and public interest. There's 17 seats, 13 of which are appointed through district, I believe it's through the district and supervisors. There's another, I think, 5 seats that are appointed by supervisor, and then there's one supervisory seat. So the whole idea is to have a commission of 17 that fully represents the community of San Francisco. We try to get that representation from the consumer base that is being served by the behavioral health services. So prior to this, there was another nonprofit that was layered in there to act as staff for the Behavioral Health Commission. That is being transitioned out and is now being offloaded to the DPH Behavioral Health Services at some point in the future, I believe at the end of December. So that's kind of like a down and dirty part of how the commission was formed. It originally started out as the Mental Health Board with the Community Substance Abuse Services, and those two came together several decades ago, or about a decade ago, and formed underneath the Behavioral Health Services. And this became the primary advisory board, as opposed to having like 5 or 6 other ones that all had to meet. Everything became comprised under the Behavioral Health Commission.
Okay,
so that's
thank you.
Probably the best way to give it.
So member neighbors, I see you have a question.
Yes, I just wanted to, in that same vein, then just to verify, then the commission, is it a commission underneath the Board of Supervisors? I know that the some of the members are appointed by specific district supervisors. And so when you say it's an advisory body, it advises the Board of Supervisors. Is that correct?
Well, no, I wouldn't say
Can I
that.
speak
I
to
would
that?
say the supervisor. No, I'm talking, Mr. Hillier.
Hold on. Mr. Hillier, we'll give you a chance to respond second. Go ahead, Mr. Greer.
Yes, I would not say that it directly advises the Board of Supervisors. However, there is supervisory representation on the board. We would, in times, make sure that the supervisors are aware of our concerns and decisions. Our main point of contact would be through the Behavioral Health Services directors and lead. We would look at various community and various services that are handled in the city of San Francisco. We have site visits. We evaluate programs. We take an assessment of the political, racial, and social climate of the consumers' needs in San Francisco. Our meetings are always public and very open, so that anyone can come and join at any time. Easily accessible, whether it be by Zoom, phone, or in person when we can. So I would say more accurately that we advise the Behavioral Health Services, which in turn would represent the Department of Public Health.
Mr. Hillier, please go ahead. You had a comment on this question.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, the commission was formed by ordinance of the Board of Supervisors in 1958. That was just 1 year after the state legislature ordered all counties to form mental health boards, and that ordinance survives in San Francisco Administrative Code section 15.12a. There is hereby established a mental health board pursuant to requirements of California Welfare and Institution Code section 5604 et sec, to be known as the Behavioral Health Commission. It does advise the Board of Supervisors, section 15.14 of the San Francisco Administrative Code section subdivision A 3 says the Behavioral Health Commission shall advise the Board of Supervisors, the Health Commission, the Director of Health, and the Director of Behavioral Health Services as to any aspect of the local behavioral health program. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. That's actually more detail than I was even looking for, but does support the argument. It seems to me, members, that this is a meeting body that would be governed by the Sunshine Ordinance in terms of jurisdiction. We are definitely there. Do we have any other questions for the petitioner or respondent at this time, or do we have a motion that we'd like to make on how we would advise the full task force? Do we have jurisdiction, and do we think this needs to go to the full task force?
This is Member Wong.
Mm-hmm.
If we're ready, I would like to make a motion to refer this matter to the full task force and say that we do have jurisdiction in this matter.
This is Member Neighbors. I'll second.
Okay, so we have a first and a second on the motion that we have jurisdiction and that this should be referred to the full task force for consideration. I would like to open this up for public comment. Is there anyone who is not directly involved in the case who would like to make public comment on this motion? We'll create a queue. Who would like to make public comment?
Anonymous number 3.
Okay, anonymous number 3. I heard you. I heard someone else speak up. Who is that?
Hi, name is Stephen, P-H-E-N, Banuelos. That's B-A-N-U-E-L-O-S. Like I'd like to make a comment. I could be
Okay.
number 2 or number 3.
You'll be number 2. Thank you so much. Is there anyone else who would like to make public comment? Okay, I'm not hearing anyone right now, but I will ask again after our first 2 speakers. Remember to unmute yourself. It's *6. It's also *6 to mute yourself again. Ms. Leger, when you're ready with the timer, please let our first speaker know.
Anonymous 3, are you ready?
I am.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. So a few points. First, I do understand what the respondent's representative is saying about, they've been thrown into this later on, but that's not really the fault of the complainant. While that second notice only comes right before the meeting, the first notice is sent a long time ago when the complaint was actually filed. Now, of course, that went to the commission and not this new staff member. But it's also the case that the staff member is not the person responsible for what the commission does, or any commission does. It's the commission members who are responsible for what the commission does. Second, I was disappointed that the respondent didn't tell you the law that created them, because that's what determines what's going on here. They're a policy body because they're, quote, any board, commission, committee, or other body created by ordinance or resolution of the Board of Supervisors. They're not an advisory body. They're a policy body under the Sunshine Ordinance, which is a much stronger one. And because their specification is laid out by a state welfare code, it's also possible and likely that they're a Brown Act legislative body as well, and you have jurisdiction over both of them in San Francisco. The other thing I wanted to read was about this thing about, I'm just going to read from the Court of Appeals in Harrell versus Superior Court. Quote, the fact that petitioners may have been motivated to make their records requests and even to file actions under the Act to harass the district does not change our conclusion. And this is not, this is actually a Court of Appeals ruling with regards to not just whether the public wins in a suit against, in this case, a district, but whether the public wins money after winning. And you can't do anything with money. But this notion that it matters why Mr. Hillier filed this particular complaint, it absolutely doesn't. The only thing is whether or not they violated the law. And that's the only thing you can consider. And it just doesn't matter why Mr. Hillier is doing whatever he wants. I have no idea who he is. I don't know who the Behavioral Health Commission is either, frankly. But all that matters is whether they complied with the Sunshine Ordinance or Brown Act. Finally, if he's removing elements from his complaint, I don't see how that would fail to give proper notice to the respondent. Now, if he's adding things to the complaint, that's a different story. But if he's just removing things, it seems like it should make the respondent's life easier. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Second speaker, Ms. Leger will let you know when she's ready with the timer, and then you'll have 3 minutes to present your comments.
Before we do that, Chair LaHood, I just wanted to ask Anonymous 3 who the plaintiff's name was in that Superior Court case.
Sure, it's Harrell, Harrell.
Perfect, thank you.
And Ms. Leger, if you could let the second speaker know when you're ready with the timer. Thank you.
Mr. Banuelos?
Let me know when to start.
Go ahead, sir.
Hi, thanks. My name is Stephen Banuelos. I'm one of the commissioners on the Behavioral Health Commission. And though I wasn't on the board until January of this year.
You know what, Mr. Banuelos, hold on 1 second. And Ms. Leger, if you could stop the clock. Members, I want to ask about this because, I'm realizing now I didn't ask if there were any other representatives speaking on behalf of either the petitioner or the respondent because this is not a full hearing. Would you still like to hear these comments, even though this is not technically public comment? Okay, Mr. Banuelos, we'll allow you to speak because we did not ask for if there was anyone speaking on behalf of the petitioner or the respondent. I will extend that as well if there was anyone who wanted to speak on behalf of the petitioner after Mr. Banuelos is done. So Ms. Leger, you could start the clock again and please continue with your comments. Thank you.
Okay, say when. I'm ready.
Go ahead.
All right. Once again, this is Stephen Banuelos, a current member of the Behavioral Health Commission, which, like the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force, is a commission, one of many commissions with the city and county of San Francisco. I've only been with the commission since March of 2021. So I wasn't on the commission during which these particular complaints seem to pertain to, but I do feel I must point out that these scores of complaints, I think 41 in this last set of complaints is just one batch. So there's obviously a tendency to make these complaints. As some people have said, other participants, it doesn't matter, but it does matter because I don't believe any body in the city and county of San Francisco, to the state or the federal government, pertains to the law to the point of not being able to see the forest through all these trees. So, you know, I think it's interesting that the complainant was not able to give a very good summary or any summary of these complaints, probably because I don't think he can, or maybe desires not to. What I'm not seeing in any of the complaints is any desire to have any kind of remediation on how to maybe make it better. And again, I'm not sure he has the ability to do that or the desire to do that. But either scenario presents a problem for the Behavioral Health Commission as well as for the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force on how to follow up with this. So I think that's important to have. What is it the complainant would like to see? Because otherwise, the complainant is just in a sense using the Sunshine and Brown ordinances to basically muck up the works of what the Behavioral Health Commission is trying to do. I mean, how many complaints can you have where the matter doesn't seem clear on the
30
agenda?
seconds.
Well, that's one person's opinion. So on issues where maybe something wasn't sent in, that's a different issue. But on things where a agenda item isn't clear, that's very ambiguous. All right, it's on your hands at this point. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone wishing to make additional public comment? And as I said, since we had someone who was speaking on behalf of the respondent, if there was anyone who is party to the case or speaking on behalf of the petitioner, I would welcome that at this time as well, even though typically public comment is for participants not involved in the case. Is there anyone else who would like to make public comment?
Warfield, please.
Mr. Warfield, we'll give you a chance to speak as soon as Ms. Leger is ready with the timer.
Are you ready, Mr. Warfield?
Yes, just let me know when to start.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. This is Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com. And we can also be reached by mail at P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. We're not a party to this complaint, and we're not particularly familiar with this complaint. Originally, my intention was just to comment on the agenda, which in this case and in another case on today, as well as other subcommittee meetings, seems to show that there's a full-blown hearing to follow if you determine you have jurisdiction. And I'm completely baffled by that. I thought that the Sunshine Task Force, the full task force only, is the one that hears complaints. I'm particularly further baffled because we seem to have gotten into a good deal of detail about the contents of the complaint here at this presumably jurisdictional hearing. With respect to some of the comments that have been made, I first of all have to say that I find the commissioner's comments alarming. To call into question the capability of the complainant to make it's a pure argument ad hominem to the person. It's a personal attack. And the idea that the complainant isn't suggesting remediation, well, I don't know what that's about. This is not, one doesn't have to be a certified diplomat to come to the Sunshine Task Force. The complaint states complaints, and the task force will determine whether there was a violation of the law. That's it. Either there was a violation or not. Presumably the remediation, in fact, would be something that the task force, I'm hearing noises, something that the task force would determine if there's any question as to what has to happen for remediation. and the task force is well equipped to do that through its hearing process, through its order of determination, and through its presumably follow-up committees. I'd certainly agree with Anonymous. I trust his research with respect to what kind of a body this is. Indeed, a policy body has the full weight of sunshine to comply with. And as Anonymous said, motives are completely irrelevant. We might certainly ask what the motives are of the potential or actual violators, but that's not the issue. It's whether the law has been broken or not, and what to do about that is up to the task force subsequent to a determination. That's basically all that I can say. It's based on observation from today's meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else wishing to make public comment on this motion? Hearing none. Members, I just wanted to say a couple of things based on some of the things that were said. Yes, we are here to find jurisdiction, but one of the things that we do try to do is make sure that that there are facts and materials that would be needed for the full task force to consider the case, which is why we ask for basic description, basic response. We don't dig into the details, but we need to know that there's enough there for the full task force to consider, and that's why we do sort of a cursory review. If it seems, for some, it may seem as though we don't go far enough. For others, it may seem, why are we talking about this? This is not a full hearing, but that's the purpose of us asking those questions. I'd also like to reiterate, and fellow committee members, feel free to jump on this, but our goal here is to be dispassionate. We are trying to uphold the Sunshine Ordinance for any member of the public who wants to use it, to make sure that they have access to public documents and meetings. And we are not looking at why people are seeking information or seeking access. We just want to make sure that their rights to public information and public meetings are preserved according to the Sunshine Ordinance and the Brown Act. Members, any other questions or comments, or should we proceed with the vote? Member Neighbors, I see your hand up.
Thank you for that clarification. And I wanted to say, I also, I had the same confusion that Mr. Warfield had about the way the agenda is written in terms of determination of jurisdiction and hearing on the complaint for both of our items that are on the agenda today. So I just wanted to share that was a confusion for me also. And if it's a way that it's written or a way that it's presented, I can see why someone might be assuming that we were going to have the hearing today.
Can I comment on that? The summaries
sure, please go ahead.
Summaries that are written, Member Neighbors, are for the purposes of the committee and the task force, so that we have a clear outline of what violations are being considered. So this is information I actually got from Mr. Hillier. He prepared a chart.
Ms. Lachey, I believe it's, and forgive me, I believe it's the fact that under each item there's an A and a B, and the A says determination of jurisdiction, which I think everyone understands why we're here. But when B says hearing on the complaint, this is not a full hearing, but it's just to determine that we have enough facts and materials for this to advance to the full task force for consideration. And as we've seen in previous cases, sometimes the task force sends things back to us and says, hey, can you check on, see if you can get more information on this before we have our full hearing. So this is, a preliminary sort of hearing to make sure that there are at least enough facts and materials for the task force to consider, but it is not a full hearing. Members, does that make sense? Okay.
This is language that we have used, at least I've certainly, as long as I've been here, and it's been a little over 3 years, that was recommended to me by the former administrator, Victor Young, to use whenever setting up agendas where the committee is hearing the matter for the first time. And I think Chair Wolf is in agreement with that, but I can certainly check with Chair Wolf and see if he wants to make any amendments to that language. That's no problem at all.
Yeah. Ms. Lachey, I appreciate that. I understand what it means, but it has been explained to me, and perhaps I don't want us to get too far afield on this, so maybe we can discuss this at a later point. I'd like to come back to the motion. We've had our motion, we've had public comment, and I'd like for us to call the vote on this one.
All right. Member Wong?
Aye.
Member Wong, aye. Member Neighbors?
Aye.
Member Neighbors, aye. Chair LaHood?
Aye.
Chair LaHood, moved by Member Wong, second by Member Neighbors, to find that there is jurisdiction and refer the matter to the task force.
Thank you. Let's please call the next item.
Okay, just a second.
And thank you to both our petitioner and respondent. We do appreciate your participation. Thank you for coming today, and you'll receive additional instructions on the next steps with this matter.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We ready for the next item?
Yes, please.
Item number 5, file number 21066, complaint filed by Carl Kramer against Carmen Chu and the Office of the City Administrator for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 6721 by failing to respond to a records request in a timely and/or complete manner.
Okay, thank you. Is the petitioner here?
Carl Kramer is here.
Great, thank you. And is the respondent or someone representing the respondent here today?
Bill Barnes, Office of the City Administrator, on behalf of Carmen Chu.
Okay, thank you for being here today. We're going to hear first from Mr. Kramer. Mr. Kramer, you'll have 5 minutes, and then after that, Mr. Barnes, you'll have 5 minutes to respond. Ms. Leger, when you're ready with the timer, please let Mr. Kramer know.
Mr. Kramer, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, you'll have to speak up.
Yes, can you hear me all right, Cheryl?
Yeah, that's much better. Thank you. Are you ready to begin?
I'm ready. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So I'm actually going to respond to a letter that was sent by Bill Barnes because his first question was whether this was already dealt with in a previous hearing as file number 20090. That complaint was filed July 25th, 2020, and that was for records regarding information in the fiscal year 2021 budget. And the complaint was filed July 25th. The original information request was made June 11th, 2020, and it didn't come up to a hearing until March 23rd. The 21066 is a request for information regarding the fiscal year 21-22 budget. That information request was made February 18th, 2021. The complaint was made May 12th. And so in Bill Barnes' letter, he kind of lays out 3 arguments. One, that the information is not covered by the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force of the Public Records Act because in the subject line of the initial information request, it said information required by the MCO ordinance. It cited the MCO ordinance. And that was to identify what the information was. It wasn't saying that it was it's information that is required by the Sunshine Ordinance to be made available to the public. It has to do with the budget for the Office of Contract Administration. If the Office of Contract Administration feels that it's exempt from the Sunshine Ordinance, then they need to state the provisions why it's exempted. The second argument that Bill Barnes makes is on the timeliness under the mayor's emergency order. Now, as I understand the legal opinion that was written by Dennis Herrera, the department is given 10 days to then say that they'll need an additional 14 days, and those are calendar days, so that's a total of 24 days. The request for this information was made February 18th, and the complaint was filed May 12th. That's 84 days after the complaint, or 84 days after the initial request that a complaint was made. And then his third statement was that there are no responsive records, in his letters dated August 10th. This was information regarding the fiscal year 21-22 budget, which by this date had already been enacted. It's a little hard to believe that the Office of Contract Administration would have no records regarding, what they're allocating to different. And according to the Controller's Office, they have 15 contracts with nonprofit organizations, and so there should be some record of what the allocations are to those nonprofit organizations. So that's it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And do we have Mr. Barnes? Are you ready to respond?
I was taking notes on the new issues that Mr. Kramer raised, but let me start with the initial complaint.
Hold on one moment. One moment. Ms. Lachey, are you ready with the timer?
Yeah, that's what I was doing.
Okay. Please give Mr. Barnes the signal when you are ready.
Mr. Barnes, are you ready? Sir?
Yeah, I'm ready to go. So I just wanted to make sure that members of the committee had our written response. I had submitted it, but it didn't make it in the packet. Thank you to Cheryl for adding it. As you know, and I also want to clarify that this complaint is against the City Administrator's Office. The Office of Contract Administration is a separate agency of the City and County of San Francisco that has a separate records department. So I'm not certain whether the requester intended for the City Administrator's Office to respond to the request or the Office of Contract Administration. Those are separate entities that have separate records processes. But my predecessor, Tal Quitone, had appeared before the task force. He's no longer with the City and County of San Francisco on the previous complaint. And the information request that came in was asking for information about whether or not our office calculated certain cost increases to nonprofits. Mr. Kramer supposes or says that the minimum compensation ordinance requires departments to individually do those calculations. In response to the previous request, we had provided information from the Controller's Office and the Mayor's Office, and were told by the requester that the information was not what they were seeking. They were looking for departmental calculations on what the increases ought to be. Those records don't exist. There are not departmental calculations on the increases. There are records from the Controller and the Mayor's Office on the funding that's allocated through the budget process for this purpose. And so a little bit of a lack of clarity on the nature of the records. But on February 18th, the email came into our regular City Administrator inbox. We have a separate Sunshine inbox, although people are not required to send emails there. And it was routed as a sort of policy request, and sort of was routed through the regular budget consideration. It was not pulled out as a records request. It didn't cite the Sunshine Ordinance or the Brown Act. There have been subsequent requests from the same requester that do cite those provisions, and when we have records, respond to them or refer them to the appropriate agencies. And so the person in the City Administrator's Office who checks the main email inbox, which is not me, did not route this as a Sunshine request based on the nature of the subject line. And so in terms of picking up the pieces on this particular complaint, we would ask that you not find jurisdiction because we believe it's a policy matter. There are no records responsive to the request. And then I wasn't sure if the other item was still open because I saw just in reading the minutes that the committee had considered it, but I hadn't seen a full task force hearing from the 20090, which is why I had included it in the correspondence. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions anybody might have.
Thank you for your comments. I appreciate it. I'll offer first committee members. Do you have questions for the petitioner or the respondent? while you're thinking, I'll say a few things. This is interesting in that, first there's the question, the question of jurisdiction. Then there's the question of what is a sunshine request and what constitutes a request for documents. How departments are set up to handle those kinds of requests, and then if there are responsive documents. The interesting thing in this situation is there may not be responsive documents, but it seems as though there was a request, and the request might not have been responded to in a timely manner, even though there may not be responsive documents from the department. And that's a bit of a conundrum. But city departments still have, hold on. I'm discussing among the committee members.
Sorry.
I'm not seeking input yet. But this is a conundrum in that there may have been a violation in terms of delayed response, even though had the response happened in a timely manner, there would not have been responsive documents, or perhaps it may be determined that a referral to another agency would have been the appropriate response. So I've said many words. Committee members, I'd love to hear your comments, or if you have questions, or I see member neighbors, I see your hand up. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think your summary is correct. The request was made, and whether that, whatever the reason that it wasn't acknowledged as it went through the pipeline, it's there on page, P84. It's very clear that what the request is and what it's for. And so the whether there are records or not, there was a request that needed to be responded to. And I kind of share Mr. Kramer's skepticism that there wouldn't be, given that it was a retrospective issue, that there wouldn't be some kind of records, right? So again, that's not a jurisdiction issue, but it might be something for the full task force to dig into and to examine. I mean, I don't think it's a conundrum in that there may have not been responsive records or not. Whether there were or not, there was still a potential violation, and there was a request made, right? And it wasn't responded to in a timely fashion. So I guess what's left is the piece about whether it needed to go to a different office. But again, we have that represented in the ordinance as well, right? That needs to be the response as well. So that's kind of what I'm hearing. Yeah.
Member Wong, any other comments or questions for the petitioner or the respondent?
No.
Okay. I did hear Mr. Barnes, I'm not sure, or Mr. Kramer, one of you was trying to say something.
Yeah, it's Bill Barnes in the city administrator's office.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that we do not believe this is a records request. Mr. Kramer and his organization have asked for information about departmental calculations of contracts. That is a policy matter that is laid out in the minimum compensation ordinance. Our office does not conduct that activity, and therefore there are no records. This was subject to a pending complaint that was open at the task force at the same time that this additional information request came in. And so I can't speak to the staff person who's no longer with us who routed it, but this has always been treated as a policy matter. This is not a records matter because the category of records that are being requested do not exist within the city administrator's office. And so on a jurisdictional level, we were asking that the committee not find jurisdiction because we don't believe it's a records request. If you read the full text of the request, it describes how the advocates believe our office should be calculating increases to nonprofit contracts.
Mr. Barnes, thank you for your comments. Member Neighbors, you had something to say about that, or I'm not sure if your hand was up from before, but please go ahead.
I'm sorry, my hand seems to be staying up today. I'm sorry, but I will say, I mean, I think, again, pointing to that language on P84, it specifically says The request is specifying an identifiable record or set of records the department should have according to the law. We also request information as to whether the department allocated funding. So there is this, it definitely is couched within a letter and within an advocacy appeal, but the request is still there and it's clearly stated, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So if I could just request that. Okay.
Okay, go ahead, and then I'll say what I had to say.
I'm sorry. I think there was some confusion in our office because there was an existing complaint. When I received notice of this complaint, it came across twice with two different complaint numbers from the task force. And so to the extent that it sounds like the committee is going to find jurisdiction, it will be helpful to the respondent to understand how many open complaints there are and whether the hearings on those can be consolidated. And that would be my last request.
So, Mr. Barnes, we definitely understand why there might be confusion about this, and I believe our administrator can help with navigating that. And we appreciate you being here and helping us try to figure things out, and figure out what Mr. Kramer was asking and how your department can comply with this. I do understand when there are multiple requests, which are allowed, how that could be a little bit confusing. And part of our goal is to, help you and help everyone involved so that, the city can streamline some of this, and I hope respond to requests, more efficiently. That's also part of what we would like to do here. So, members, I think at this point, based on our conversation, it's sounding like we're agreeing that there is jurisdiction, that this was a request for information, and in requesting public documents, no one needs to cite the Sunshine Ordinance in the request, although often I know people do because it helps. But I think that the intention, it is clear that there was a request for public records. Do we have a motion?
This is Member Wong. I will again make a motion to refer this matter to the full task force and say that we have found jurisdiction in this matter.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second on this motion?
This is Member Neighbors. I will second.
Okay. I'd like to open this up for public comment. Public comment on the motion to find jurisdiction and refer to the full task force. We'll create a queue. Is there anyone wishing to make public comment on this matter?
Anonymous number 3.
Anonymous number 3, you're first in line. Is there anyone else who would like to make public comment on this matter? On this motion, excuse me. Okay, I'm not hearing anyone, although I am hearing some background noise. So if you're not planning to speak, if you could please press *6 to mute yourself. Or if you are muted and are planning to speak, please press *6 to unmute yourself. When Ms. Leger is ready with the timer, she'll give you the signal, anonymous number 3, and then I will ask again in case anyone was having trouble unmuting themselves. Ms. Leger, please go ahead.
Anonymous, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. This is anonymous number 3. A few points. First, the subject line of this person's request says, quote, request for information. There's no way to misinterpret that subject line. I often have a lot of advocacy, in my case about Sunshine, while I'm also making a request. Doesn't matter. Also, you don't have to ask for documents. You have to ask for public records under the state law. But the local law, and by the way, records are defined, it's a defined term in the Public Records Act. It is not just a document. It's all sorts of different things, which I've discussed before. But the local law goes further and says you can request a public record or public information, which is exactly what was done here, which is the content of any public record. You can describe a request for information about the information you want, and they have to go figure out what record it's in. This is specific additional language, additional definitions in the Sunshine Ordinance that are not in the Public Records Act, and they do have to comply with that. The other point was they mentioned that, well, the mayor's the COVID orders don't allow you to find a timeliness violation, or maybe they mentioned that in their response to him by letter. False. The Public Records Act requires you to give a notice of determination of the existence of these records and reasons thereof within 10 days of the request. So it is absolutely the case. There's possible that no information, no records existed, but the timeliness requirement of the PRA was still violated. I don't know if it was or not in this case. I haven't read through the whole file. But if they didn't respond in 10 days saying, we have no public records that would reflect this information, they violated law. Now, they also violated the Sunshine Ordinance if they didn't point them to, say, the Office of Contract Administration or whoever it might be who has that information. And that's a separate violation under 67.21, I believe it's C. And all of these are things that your full task force should consider. CPRA Government Code 6253C for timeliness and 6721C for failing to assist if some other agency did have records that would reflect this information. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who would like to comment on this motion? Last call for comment on the motion. Press *6 if you need to unmute yourself. Last call for public comment, and if you're not commenting, please press *6 to mute yourself. Okay, I don't think we have any additional public comment. Ms. Leger, please call the vote.
Member Wong?
Aye.
Member Wong, aye. Member Neighbors?
Aye.
Member Neighbors, aye. Chair LaHood?
Aye.
Chair LaHood, aye. Moved by Member Wong, seconded by Member Neighbors to refer the matter to the task force and that the committee has found jurisdiction.
Thank you, and thank you for participating with us today. We do appreciate it. Ms. Leger, please call the next item.
Item number 6, announcements, comments, questions, and future agenda items by members of the Compliance and Amendments Committee.
Members, I know we had a long discussion last meeting, and I think we're following up on some of those items. Any new items for discussion that you'd like to bring up or see added to a future agenda?
This is Member Wong. I have nothing.
Okay. Member Neighbors?
I have nothing. I'm sad there's not a new podcast recommendation from members.
And the one update I have is that we talked last time about getting a memo from our deputy city attorneys about guidance regarding, and the words are escaping me right now.
Attorney-client privilege.
Thank you, attorney-client privilege, and we are continuing work on that and hoping to get it on the agenda. We needed a little more time, hoping to get it on the agenda for our next Compliance and Amendments Committee meeting, and that will be on the agenda. If we're able to, we will get it on the next agenda, and members of the public will know about it ahead of time and be able to show up to participate in that discussion if they wish. I don't have anything else at this time. Since I did say something, I will offer last opportunity for public comment on that one thing before we adjourn. Any final public comment on this last item I've mentioned?
Anonymous number 3.
Anonymous, and anyone else who would like to be in the queue behind Anonymous? Okay, Anonymous, Ms. Leger will let you know when she's ready with the timer, and then you may speak.
Sir, are you ready?
I am.
Go ahead.
This is Anonymous number 3 again. Thank you very much. Regarding that memo about attorney-client privilege, I will simply say
some of the most important decisions made by this task force are where you decide in the face against what the city attorney's office says to more broadly interpret access. And it's happened, I know, in many of my cases. I know it's happened in many cases before my cases. And so, yes, of course, take the input of the city attorney, but you are not ruled by the city attorney. And the reason you are 11 independent, or 10, I guess, at the moment, lay people, journalists, lawyers, consumer advocates, and everything else that you are, it's because you more broadly interpret the Sunshine Ordinance as the Constitution demands than Dennis Herrera does. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else wishing to make public comment on this last item? Okay, hearing none. Thank you everyone for participating today. We do appreciate you all being here. Ms. Leger, please call the next item.
Item number 7, adjournment. I have 6:22.
Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Who moves?
I move to adjourn.
That was Member Neighbors. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Seconded by Member Wong. I think we can take it by acclamation. Thank you, everyone, and see you next week at the full task force hearing.
Lila, can you hang on for just a few minutes? I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay, yes, please stop the recording. Thank you.